Howdy to you. I know we're actually on time. It just turned, but it's going to ding in just a minute. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's good to see everybody. I know quite a few are getting back from vacay and sickness and all sorts of things. So we're glad to have a little better crowd tonight, I think. Oh, anybody remember this stuff? Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. These were the good days right here. Best days of your life, whether you realized it or not. Yeah, what do we call that shape right there, other than a U, obviously? It's not a V. That's an absolute value, right? What's this one called? Go ahead, Marty. Parabola. Very good, parabola. So I always want to say it's two lines because you look at the definition of a line and pretty sure it's one, though. A curved line, if you believe in such a thing. Anyway, so you have this line and it goes around and everything's kind of equidistant as it branches out. It's called a parabola. I was teasing the sixth graders with this. I like to do that with the kids, letting them know, you're going to get into, we're starting to deal with X's a little bit more with sixth graders. And said you're going to need to really know this line stuff, and that's going to be single X's, and then you have your X squareds, and they look like this, and your absolute values, and they look like this, V's, and then you got the X cubes. Those are funky chicken. Those are the ones you go, woo. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I told them, especially in algebra 2, you're going to be dealing quite a bit with ones that look like this. And I was telling it to them for a purpose, though. I was breaking down the word, and I know many of you have heard me do that, but parabola is actually a biblical term. It comes from the Greek parabole. Parabole. And you can break down these two words. You have bole from boleo, which is a verb that means to cast, or to cast to the side. And then we probably know also from math what's para. Alongside. Very good. And a matter of fact, a pair of something, I'm sure that's probably the etymology of that term also. So what you literally have is to cast by the side is parabola in Greek. That's the word that's transliterated into parable, into the English. And think about these concepts, though. You have these two sides that come out just right beside one another, and they create these just perfect mirrors of one another. What's Jesus accomplishing through the parables? He's literally casting by the side, taking two things, right? Something we understand from our everyday world and placing right alongside, running parallel, or para, with it, the real truth that's going to lead us into eternity. And so I guess you could say our lesson tonight in dealing with three magnificent parables of Jesus is kind of mathematical. Our math is based on this concept, parabole, parable, a parabola. And so let's get into these parables of Jesus tonight. Of course, he has so many of them. Depending on how you classify them, some might say 47, 48, others might even get into the low 50s. I do think we get a little confused at times in the difference between a parable and a simile, as well as an allegory. There are distinctions in all of these. But in true parables, they're probably at least in the 40s, upper 40s of Jesus. But I don't know that you're going to find any three better stories that Jesus ever told, the master storyteller. And these three are magnificent in Luke, the 15th chapter. The commonality with all of these is we're going to deal with things that are lost, or at least that may potentially get lost. I mean, as we go into each one, I want us to think back on our own lives if we've ever lost anything similar to these and how that made us feel. So let's start in the 15th chapter of Luke in the first verse. Then all the tax collectors drew near. So all the tax collectors have come near, and the sinners, to hear Jesus. Beautiful scene. But we have a problem, according to the religious leaders, as is commonly the case in beautiful scenes. And the Pharisees and the scribes complain, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." So he spoke this parable to them, saying, you don't find the lead in via the next parable, but verse 11, there's just kind of a slight little narrative in stating, then he said, but I don't want to lose sight of all three of these great stories that Jesus told, all come from this basic background here, where people are upset that Jesus is entertaining people who have things off in their lives. Right, that's the background to it. So let's go into this first one, which is going to be the parable of course, the lost sheep. And before we do, I want to ask you, as I will each one of these, you ever lost an animal? You ever lost an animal? I'm not talking about the deer you shot, you wanted dead and in your freezer or head mounted on the wall. That's a different thing, okay? You ever lost an animal, like a pet? All right, what have you lost, Tony? Oh, I was afraid of that. Ooh, that's an expensive pet to lose too, isn't it? But I'm sure beloved, like others too. You wouldn't want that to happen, all right? Who else has lost something? An animal? Dogs. Okay. Okay. Did you ever find them?
No, I meant they all died.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, I got you. Yeah, we lived out on a very busy country road. And so, yeah, we couldn't keep pets alive. We tried hard. Unless you're guaranteed. Now, if you like got a decent one and you paid money, it'll be dead in 3 days. Guaranteed. Including if it's smart. And I don't understand that. But you get a dumb one and, someone just gave to you or, whatever they didn't want. You don't pay anything for it. It's eternal. Guaranteed, that animal is. But outside of that, yeah. So, yeah. All right, who else has a pet that you lost? You want to share? Bobby? Oh, okay. Well, that goes really well with this. So let's just stop right there because that's a happy story. We want happy stories tonight. And these are actually happy stories that Jesus tells. But my question to you is this before we head in now is, this isn't, therapy, but I guess it could work that way. How did that make you feel when you lost the animal? I mean, you're frantically searching and calling out and there's no response. How did that make you feel? With your horses? Yeah, okay. You feel it kind of deep down? It's hurt. Oh, man. It used to be so much heavier, didn't it, that wallet? It's really not anymore. Over here, sorry. Okay, now isn't that fascinating how that works, Roy? And don't get me wrong on this. You guys, there's probably a lot of people in this room that loves animals more than I do, okay? At the same time, I do have care for certain animals, just not all of them. And yeah, isn't it strange? And so don't take this the wrong way when I say it's just a silly animal. It's an animal. But the attachments we get to these creatures, it's like nothing else matters when we don't have that silly animal. Like, why are we that way? We are, right? Even I get that way sometimes, right? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is. I always thought that was a really pretty song. It's kind of, to me, that's a classic. My dad, that was always one of his favorite songs. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Verse 4. All right, here's the first story. Lose an animal. See what that feels like. What man of you, having 100 sheep? Wow, that's a lot of them. You have 100 horses, Tony? I doubt. Ooh, you'd be doing pretty well, wouldn't you? You had 100 horses. Okay, these aren't worth as much. They're not as big. But what man of you, having 100 sheep, if he loses just one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders. This is almost like an athletic event. You'll see the ball players, whatever sport it is. They win. They go, all right, they've done it. They won the championship. And here comes the trophy, and it's passed around. What do they all do? Well, gross parts, they kiss it, but then what? Yeah, that's what it is. And I wonder if this might be the case here. I don't know, maybe it's easier to carry. It's like that's probably some of it too. But maybe in part it's like a trophy, It's your whole life's pursuit, it felt like, went into this. And you found that animal. We've lost a cat. It's a cat, right? Okay, we paid $60 for that cat, believe it or not. That was with all of its shots, though, so it could have been worse. Anyway, we bring that cat home and with another one, and we set it down, and they run off. So they're like, oh no, should we go get them? Are they going to come back even though food's here? Haven't gotten all that established yet. But I can relate to this. We went out and kind of trapped it, and I got that cat, and I was bear hugging that cat, and I had some scratches up and down my arms to prove it. And maybe that's some of it too, and holding it with the legs down over, so you're kind of locking it in to make sure that it doesn't get loose and get away. Anyway, whatever it is, he finds it, he puts it on his shoulders, rejoicing. Maybe if it's his trophy that he's holding up. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost." I mean, it's a silly animal, but it was like your life was over. And I like the happy endings, Bobby. I like the scratches all over my arms because I got my animal back. I don't care. That's the only thing that matters. But you're just so excited, and it's like you want to stop everything you're doing. You want everybody else to stop everything they're doing, get together, and have a party. You're just so happy. Joe? Yeah, good, Joe. That's a really good explanation. I think you're exactly right. Dim-witted, unobservant, probably as well. Terrible at governing themselves. All right, just just mindless, really, what it is. Yeah, so many examples that fit. So what's the point? Verse 7, Jesus speaks, "I say to you that likewise there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 just persons who need no repentance." I know we know the verse really well. Do we understand that concept? I'm going to relate this back to athletics, then we'll get back to what's going on right here. What stands out to you? Is it when you win, or is it when you lose? I think it could be both, without a doubt. But let's say you win one, you lose one, and you're like, oh, okay, that's fine. I won't speak for you, but for me, that doesn't work. I'm not happy. I'm not happy at all. I never like to lose. I hate losing. It seems like I can kind of deal with it if my team, whether I'm playing on it or coaching on it, I'm just a fan of it. If we win about like 10 games to every one we lose, or maybe 8 games to one we lose, like, you can kind of sort through that. But if you're losing just as many as you're winning, it's miserable. It just seems like the worst thing. This is a psychological thing, but people who are in that field will say, for every negative thing that's spoken to you, how many positive things do you need to hear to counterbalance? You might get different numbers, but it's in the neighborhood anyway. Okay, 7. All right, I've heard 3. I'm sure it's not an exact science, but the point is, it takes a number more to offset the negative thing. So just looking at it from that standpoint, and I feel like the great ones, the people who win the most championships, do they love to win? Oh, absolutely. But I think there may be something that's even a stronger passion than loving to win. And I think it might be hating to lose. There's no worse feeling than that. Okay, so let's relate this now to real life and to people. You go to a memorial, and it's someone who's a devoted servant of Christ. Many of us got the opportunity to do that, a couple weeks ago. And some people asked me about it. I had the privilege of officiating at that service. And not only was it relatively easy to do, I hate to say this, but it was kind of fun. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, obviously. We don't like the death parts that go along with things. But just reflecting on, hey, someone you love so much and is a part of your eternal family, and this is what's going on with them. It's fantastic. There's no other way of explaining it. But we've all also been to the memorials where we're not trying to play anyone's eternal judge, but we're also well aware of what God says and fairly familiar with the person in the life that was led. Now, how does the joy for one entering into reward compare to the misery of mine and being concerned about what that person's going to be facing for eternity? Again, I won't speak for you, but I will for me. To me, as great as the joy is for the one, I think it's even worse in comparison, the misery that is felt for the other one. I don't know if you'd say the same thing about that. I feel like I can relate to that. And do you see what God's saying right here? I could have 99 who are in line with me, great relationship, heading to the right place. And if I don't have just one, the 99 compared to the 1, I'm going to have to leave these. I have some business to which I must go tend. That's how much it hurts God. He absolutely cannot stand it. He loves to win. He hates to lose. And I believe that innate characteristic is built within every one of us who is made in His image. John? Yeah, I would agree with you. Thanks for adding that in, John. Do you catch the wording of that? What John's saying right here that ties it in just absolutely perfectly. There is more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than saying, oh man, I got 99 who's doing it all right. More joy in that. Hates to lose. Absolutely incredible when you really think about it. So that's the first story of the lost animal, how we would react toward that, and how we should use that to help us understand how God feels about lost people. Joe. Great tie-in, Joe. And yeah, absolutely. Most definitely couldn't agree more. And again, I'm going to relate this back winning and losing as far as, I feel like everybody wants to win. That's not really that. Bless you. You too, huh? Oh, it's getting bad, man. Bad. Everybody loves to win. I'm pretty sure, aren't you? Not everybody hates to lose. And I know if I'm involved in anything, activity, business, anything, but again, I would also say athletics, for that matter, church, okay? If I'm a part of any kind of group, and especially athletics, I want people who want to win. I want people on my team that cannot stand to lose. I need that, okay? I crave that. And I feel like those are going to be the ones that are really committed and probably really understand the big picture. Jesus is certainly committed, and He gets the big picture. And we want to make sure that we're living as people, not just who want to win. We're all going to go to heaven, right? But also who don't want anyone to be on the other side of that. Wants everybody to be on the winning side. Do you have a follow-up?
Well,
always, right?
You don't have to go through that.
I can only imagine. I hadn't considered that prospect. You're right, I haven't yet. I probably will at some point. Thank you. I hope not also. Realistically, I probably will, but I hope you're right. But man, I can only imagine just even thinking about that. How much more you'd appreciate, and just like you said, the relief just lifted off of you. Wow. Okay, so thanks, Joe. Let's get into the lost coin. And before we do so, verses 8 through 10, this is a pretty short one. I know we all have. What have you lost of economic value that was of great concern to you? And while you're thinking here just a little bit, I'll share a couple of them with you. One doesn't involve me, but my brother and sister-in-law, they had, I can't tell you how much, but it was for sure many hundreds, if not even 1,000, or I don't know if it was multiple thousand of dollars, all their eggs in one basket. They had it on a single Walmart gift card. And you know how it is when you get married. You have nothing, absolutely nothing. They have all this on there. And they don't know which one, when, how, but somewhere along the line, that card got misplaced, thrown away, and all that money that had been donated is gone. They had no receipt on it, anything. It was just gone. There was nothing that could be done about it. How would that make you feel? I'll tell you about a second one. Now, this one does involve me very directly. Some of you might remember it was a Broncos-Chiefs game. Chiefs lost. It was almost the last time. It was the last time they lost to the Broncos about 12 years ago. Just saying. Until, last year. Okay, congratulations. We got one back. But no, we went to that game, and I had to watch Manning do it. I knew it was going to happen, and lost the game. But it was that game, if I'm not mistaken. We had it was at least 10, 12, maybe 15 people going with us. And I purchased all the tickets as a group. It was on Sunday. We're going to the game. On Saturday night, I mentioned to Vanessa, we better, so we don't have to mess with it tomorrow. Go ahead and get the tickets out and set them out. I looked in the drawer where I knew I put the whole bundle of tickets. You know how much money that many tickets to a Chiefs game is? Even back then, I looked we tore the house apart trying to find those tickets. Oh man, of course, that was back in the days I was struggling a little bit more than I am right now with anger, and so there might have been some drawers slamming and things, and a little bit of yelling that went on, but Oh, you talk about the worst feeling in the world. And you know there is no way you can fix that. The game is tomorrow. And then all the money that's gone into it. Oh, you talk about, and you keep going, okay, they got to be somewhere. But they're not there, and we went through here, and we've gone through everywhere. I don't know how many times. Finally, I think it may have been Vanessa, pulled the drawer of this server in our kitchen, pulled the drawer out, and there they were resting against the back on a ledge. There was a bunch of junk in the drawer, and it had fallen over the top, got pushed over the top. Hours searching for those. I don't know what it's like with a kid, but I can tell you what it's like for about 15 Chiefs tickets. That is a relief, and you appreciate having those in your possession. I'll tell you one more. My dad and one of our best friends from the Mountain Grove Church, Dad preached there, I think, for 13 years, and lifelong friend. He'd come over and help Dad dig all these post holes for a deck that we were putting onto the back of our place. And Dad always did things the hardest way. It was a bar, breaking the rock and just scooping piece by piece. All of these holes, they dug all of these. Well, they'd gotten all the posts put in and even filled them up. It had been a long, full-day effort. And so this guy's getting ready to leave from our house, and older guy, he gets a little scatterbrained at times. A little guy, funny. He was a boxer, tough dude too. Anyway, so he's getting ready to leave, and he can't find his keys anywhere. They look all around in the area. It's about getting dark by this point, hot summer day. Look everywhere. They can't find them. So they go through and start digging up all of these holes, thinking it obviously they fell out of his pocket and got buried in there. Dig up a hole. They can't find the keys. I mean, the guy's just scratching his head. What could have possibly? They were in his back pocket all along. So my point is this. Sometimes it might be a blessing to realize, okay, it actually is lost, because I'm pretty sure my dad never got over that they weren't lost and all those holes being dug up. Anyway, so what's something of value that you've lost, not thought you lost, but that you actually lost? And if you have a good story that you recovered, please share. Just a couple of them before we get going here. Bobby, you're on a roll tonight. Okay, go ahead, Bobby. No. Okay, all right. Huh. Yeah. Oh, no, I understand totally, yeah. Wow. I bet you weren't grieving nearly as much as Roy was, just saying. Well, there's the insurance, so maybe he didn't care as much. Well, it sounds like someone's been living right, okay? When you lose things, it just falls into your lap eventually. Okay, all right, let's go through and read this. I know we have a lot of good ones we could share. Verse 8, or what woman, okay, so we're starting in the right place. I think they appreciate it more than we do, guys. What woman having 10 silver coins, if she loses one coin, well, it's only one coin, but you think about it, she only has 10, that's a tenth of everything she has. So if you had, if you had $1,000, you lost a $100 bill. That's just $100. Well, that's a tenth of what you have. I mean, that's considerable. Does not light a lamp, sweep the house. We get it, don't we? We've done it. And search carefully until she finds it. And when she has found it, she calls her insurance agent. Okay, that's just your translation. She calls her friends, her neighbors together, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found the peace which I lost." Especially if it's of sentimental value also. I've lost a wedding ring also. Mine's probably not near as dear as what yours was. Mine was stolen. And I found out later, melted down for I think about $70 or $75. Yeah, I got a decent insurance check out of it though, so I really wasn't too disappointed. Excuse me. I can only imagine though for a lady, I think it's a lot more even sentimental value. I didn't like it either though as a guy. That's the original one. But if you get it back, wow, what a relief. Here's the lesson, verse 10. Likewise I say to you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. says, if you've ever lost something that's worth something, and you were going to sacrifice whatever it took to get it back, and you searched high and low and cleaned and swept and picked up and restacked and resorted, and you know what that feeling's like, now you have an idea what heaven feels like when just one lost sinner comes home to God. I think a lot of times, I believe I have, that we misinterpret this verse. The rejoicing here, if you'll notice, isn't mentioned that it's being done by the angels, although yes, they probably would. I could be wrong about that. Notice that there is joy in the presence of the angels of God. Who's in the presence of the angels of God? I think what's really being stated here isn't, and we often say, the angels are rejoicing. I think that's probably true, but I believe what's actually being stated here is that God is rejoicing in that way in heaven when one comes home. And then here's our last one for us tonight, the one with which we're most familiar and the greatest amount of space is dedicated to it. Parable of the lost child. And now I think we're getting a little more serious with this. We can smile about the rest. You ever lost a child? Now, I'm not talking about like lost a child. I hope not. But have you ever lost a child as far as you can't find your child? Did that ever happen with you? I think we probably with me, there's not really just an exact one that sticks out. So it probably hasn't been a bad one where we really thought, But have you ever thought, my child has been misplaced or taken, or my child has run away? Anybody, please share if you have. Nobody? Go ahead, Joe. You have a lot of life experiences, by the way. So.
It was kind of neat to see her come back, and of course we were able to rehab her and keep her for a while.
That is, yeah.
The prodigal cat I always
How unique. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. What are the odds of that? Huh. Yeah, that does fit in. Let's go ahead and jump into it since you've led us here. Verse 11, then he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. So he divided to them his livelihood. If you want, you can keep your spot right here. Turn to the Old Testament with me to Deuteronomy 21. Deuteronomy 21 will get us a little insight into how exactly this worked according to God's law. 21st chapter of Deuteronomy in the 17th verse. Verse 17, but he, this is a father that's being discussed right here, shall acknowledge the firstborn, his firstborn son. The son, in a certain condition here, he's describing it as the unloved. What he means is, this is in a time, it was never his idea, but people thought, well, I have one spouse and we can have like 17. And so they would get multiple spouses, and it created a lot of family problems that God never had in his mind that he ever wanted to be. Now, there's a time that God tolerates some things that he really doesn't like because humanity's a mess, simply put. So there's this guy who has 2 wives, and naturally, if you have 2 of the same thing, you're not going to feel exactly the same way toward the 2. You're going to at least prefer one over the other. Think Jacob with Rachel and Leah. Granted, he got tricked a little bit in that scenario, but you're going to prefer one over the other. So you have the loved and the unloved, at least comparatively. But he shall acknowledge the firstborn, the son, even if it's of the unloved spouse that he has chosen, his plan, not God's, by giving him, the firstborn, a double portion of all that he has. For he is the firstfruits of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. What God is establishing is something, he's saying, look, you be fair and honest in your dealings, especially within your own family. And I've set up this law that you have 2 sons, well, the firstborn is going to get double. And so essentially 2/3 is what it's going to be compared to the other sons. The second son's 1/3. And I think a lot of that's due to when you're the firstborn, you have a lot more responsibility that's thrown onto your shoulders. It just kind of naturally happens that way. And so with more work and more responsibility should come more blessing, is the way that God is looking at that. And what he's saying is, even if it's an unpreferred son, but it's a firstborn, you can't treat the lesser like a firstborn. That's not right. You're showing partiality. So it's a staple no matter what. And I say that because in our story we have a man who has 2 sons. The younger of them says to his dad, Dad, give me the portion of goods that falls to me, whatever it is you've decided is going to be my inheritance. I want to leave home right now and have my inheritance. So he divided to both of his sons his livelihood. The older son's undoubtedly going to get double if it's being done right, and the younger son's going to get the 1/3. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. He's probably had in the back of his mind for many years now, oh, once I get out on my own, I'm never doing things the way Dad did them. I'm never going to talk to my son this way. I'm never going to, Dad did everything wrong. He's probably a 17-year-old, so he knows everything right now. He's got life figured out. He's going to go do his own thing. Well, the first thing he's going to do is get as far away from Dad as he can. He never needs that guy in his life ever again, it seems is what he's thinking. The second thing he's going to do is all the fun stuff that he couldn't do when he was at home. Dad, can I? No, you're not going to do that. Why can't I? I said no. But one day when I'm going to do that every night. Well, you can if you want when you're on your own, but you're not going to be doing it under my roof. I bet that conversation was had more than once. All right. Well, he probably knew better than to say it. I hate you, I'm sure is what he's thinking in his heart. I have the worst dad in the world. So he goes as far away as he can, and he has all this money. He's rich as a 17-year-old. Man, life's good, isn't it? He has all the money he wants to spend for the rest of his life, or so he thinks. Doesn't seem like he's working to replenish everything that he's spending. Dad made me work so hard. I'm not working another day for the rest of my life. I hate everything that Dad did, everything that he taught us. So he gets out on his own. He spends all that money that Dad had worked so hard to accumulate through his life. And he spends it what the Bible describes as a prodigal, you might have in your translation, a wasteful way. This word is used elsewhere in the New Testament to describe abuse of drugs, in part anyway. I think he's probably engaged in that. That would make a lot of sense at his age. If the accusation of his older brother later holds up, what else is he involved in? Women, all right, he's living an immoral life. Dad wouldn't put up with that. Dad's not around to tell me no or tell me what time I can come home or what I can or can't do. So I'm going to do all this stuff. Man, he's living it, isn't he? Verse 14. Oh, the reality. But when he had spent all. I worked really hard for 3 summers, the last 3 of my high school days. And I've told like some of you this before. I had $400-some saved up in my bank account. And I was going to be starting college, and I was only going to have one job where I wasn't going to be working as many hours. And I thought, well, man, I got $400 in the bank, I can. And so I could go to the movies, I could rent movies, I could go out to eat, and all this stuff that I wanted to do. I thought I had it made. Well, I met Vanessa, and then I started spending just a little bit more on the weekends than what I was prior. I think it was like 3 weeks later. I had nothing. It's like, wow, where did all my $400 go? I thought I was rich. It works that way, doesn't it, when you're younger? You just don't understand how hard it is to make money and how much money it takes just to keep things going in life. But you learn pretty quickly. It didn't take any time. He'd spent everything. And there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country. We have to keep in mind this isn't like our country, although in ways it could be, but he's a part of a spiritual country. God and God's people. He's left God and God's people and their ways behind. He's going out living among the pagans. He's put his affiliation in the past with God and his people, and now he's joined with those who are not like God and his people. And so in joining himself to these people, he's working for this guy, and he sends him out into his fields to feed pigs. Well, we understand what the Jews thought about pigs, and they don't have anything to do with those. It's despicable for a Jew. Verse 16, and he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate. This is like a husk that has a sweetness from, I think it's from a carob tree, if I'm not mistaken. We might think of it, not exactly identical, but maybe like the husks from corn that's been shucked off. And he would have gladly have eaten the husks from that carob tree that had just a little bit of sweetness to them that would be given to the pigs just to fatten them up before you butcher them. And no one cared enough to give him anything. Nobody's looking out for him. Nobody's willing to help him with any cash, any food. It doesn't seem that it would be a free place to stay. He's going to have to work just to have his room and board taken care of. And I think that's when it really hits him. Can anyone relate to this, that you leave mom and dad's house thinking they did everything wrong and you're going to go do everything right and really enjoy life for the first time? I think the number one mistake in a young person's mind is you think because of how spoiled you've been, if you got to experience this with a great upbringing and a mom and dad, or at least a mom or a dad, who really care for you, that means everyone in the world is going to look at you the same way that mom and dad did. They're going to love you and take care of you. And I love to tell young people this. Reagan and I were walking at like 9:30, I think it was, the other night, just in the dark, just chatting about life, and came across this. I said, the sooner you realize that people in the world don't care anything about you, how you feel, what you think, what happens to you, the better off you're going to be. You just need to understand that very soon. I was trying to talk to her about make sure you're not developing how you look at yourself and feel about yourself on the basis of how other people look at you and treat you. And as soon as you get that figured out, the younger you can do it. I told her it took me till about 10th grade to realize that. And then I started, the better off you're going to be. Well, he probably thinks, well, Daddy always did this for me, and that's just the way people ought to do it. People on the outside don't care about you. I know you'll encounter some people who will. It's the exception. It's not the rule. People aren't going to treat you like your parents have treated you. And the sooner you realize that, the better off you're going to be. He gets out and nobody cares about him. Nobody cares if he has a place to sleep. Nobody cares if he has any money. Nobody cares if he has anything to eat. And this is the first time he's ever experienced this, and he really recognizes this. So verse 17, finally he comes to himself and he says, wait a minute, I have some memories of my past. Back when I lived with Dad, I remember that anyone who was in Dad's house, even people who weren't his kids, he really seemed to care about those people, and he took care of them. He made sure they had a job, made sure they had a place to sleep, made sure he fed them. Now, that's a good person. Well, why is this guy doing this to people who aren't his kids? I thought it was just moms and dads who did that. There you go. He's a good man, isn't he? He treats people the way they ought to be treated, and that's why. Now, we should find that within the people of God, shouldn't we? Not always going to find that on the outside. He says, I will go to my father, and I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Hey, your workers have a place to sleep. They have jobs. They have food to eat. I would love just to be like one of your servants. You really treat people well, Dad. Memory verse? Just quickly, would anyone like to say that? 20? Go ahead.
And he arose and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him.
I bet he never thought in a million years. The guy he had hated with all of his heart, and he was just as content would be to go away from him and never talk to him again. The guy that he'd argued with 100 times within reason, so Dad didn't give him fully what he deserved. He probably thought, well, Dad has also disconnected me from his mind just like I have him. He doesn't understand, does he? The classic mistake this child makes is in thinking, because I understand the love, or at times lack thereof, of a child toward a parent, that means I understand the love of a parent toward a child. It doesn't work that way, does it? As a child, you may think you understand how a parent feels towards you. But most, if not all in this room, most, understand by experience from this point. No, you don't know how a child or how a parent feels about a child until you have a child. I used to think with having nieces and nephews, well, I get it because, I feel that way. I love my nieces and nephews, but it's still not exactly the same thing, is it? He ran to his dirty, stinky, disobedient son, at least when he left, and he threw his arms around him, and he kissed his nasty, stinky skin. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. You think that might have been hard for the kid to speak? I don't know if he's just flustered and he forgets, or if he can't even get it all out before Dad cuts him off, before he can say, make me like one of your hired servants, but he doesn't even make it to that point. But the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. Now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf. Strangely, but he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, lo, these many years I've been serving you. I never transgressed your commandment at any time, yet you never gave me a young goat that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots, you killed the fatted calf for him. And he said to him, son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. How often do we point out the love of this father for the young, spoiled, rotten child, and we forget about his patience and love for the older, should be mature, but perhaps is equally immature and spoiled older son. He loves both of them so much. He says, it is right, son, that we should make merry and be glad, for your brother was dead. I don't think you understand the gravity of the situation. Your brother was dead, but now he's alive again. He was lost, and he is found. This older of the two sons says, Dad, I've always done consistently what it is that you've told me to do. Why? I think it's because he wants to win. And you want those guys on your team, don't you? You want the people that want to win. But the issue with his mentality is that he's okay with loss. And that's where he differs with his father. It's the right thing to do. Do you understand your brother was dead? Now, I want you to think about this for just a second. We've all experienced loss as in loss, haven't we? Can you imagine if you could go to a graveyard and you could pick anyone you want, anybody you want, and your relative would just rise from the dead and you could see him and visit with him again, what would you do? I would run over, I would hug, I would kiss. I don't care that your hair hasn't been washed in 15 years, but you're alive. I know that's kind of crazy to consider. Wouldn't that be insane? But do we understand that something even greater than that has taken place when a lost child of God comes home? It's not someone's life that has temporarily been restored for a few years. It's someone's eternity that's been restored. Do we look at a lost child coming home the way God does? Do we celebrate as much and as properly as we should? 3 powerful parables of Jesus, the 15th chapter of Luke. I appreciate everyone's conversation and sharing of life accounts. Anything else you'd like to bring? I know we're out of time. Okay, I'm not going to, go ahead, Joe. Crazy. Can you imagine? So I know we have to go because we're out of time, but kick this one around if you ever have. This is the perfect parent, symbolic of him in Luke 15. The perfect parent. To be a great parent, sometimes you got to be willing to let your child walk away. Think about that. God's great, isn't he? Thank you, everybody.